Shane McCafferty, what is your favourite game?
Johnny, my favourite game is Burnout 2 Point of Impact.
I grew up in I grew up in Southern Ireland, like way down the other end of Ireland to where you grew up, down the other tip, in the middle of nowhere, in a small tiny village in Waterford. It's on the border between Waterford and Kilkenny, called Sleeverow, and I was probably the only kid in the school who had like a computer, or who like used his computer. So it rains a lot in Southern Ireland, and it's pretty boring if you're not playing soccer. So if I wasn't playing soccer, I was playing games on my Spectrum, which is the first computer I ever had. And I don't know why, but the first second I saw the Spectrum or used the Spectrum to play a game, I was just enraptured by it. So my young life revolved around just soccer and either playing a game or thinking about a game. And that's all it was. I started then, and then as I grew up, I kind of got jobs and whatnot and got slightly better computers. And I went to town. I went to school in the big town, Waterford, which is not that big really. But I met other kids who had consoles, which were kind of a revelation. Like those things loaded really quickly, Johnny. Because like my Spectrum was a tape deck, so it would only load games if the volume was at a certain was at like 7.5, and as long as nobody walked down the hallway at the same time or the wind didn't go outside, the games would load, like Beachhead would load. But then when I met some kids as I was growing up, and I discovered consoles, and I remember renting consoles from local electronics stores. You could actually rent a Mega Drive in Waterford. I think it cost like something ridiculous. Like you had to put £100 deposit down or something. You got it back as long as you returned it. But I remember you brought it home in like a suitcase, like a Mission Impossible suitcase, and you opened it and you heard music in your head, and there was like a Mega Drive inside with like FIFA 90 something or like Rock and Roll Racing or something. And that was my youth, just like waiting a month until I got to like open that suitcase again and play the SNES or the Mega Drive. And then like as I got older, then I always just stuck with games, making games and playing games. And I probably had every console known to man except the current gen for other reasons. But and I do mean every. I mean, I've had 2 N-Gages. I have like 4 PSPs right now. I have a Vita TV, for God's sake. Who has one of those?
I do.
What maybe you do?
I have one just for Persona 4 Golden.
I have one only for TXK, the Minter game. That's the only reason I have it. Well, that's it really. I've just always been all about like either soccer or video games. There's no more to me. Like that's my Venn diagram. That's it. I'm not deep.
No, like that's just pure basic Irish life.
Yeah. Rain video games.
Rain, video games, and football, basically.
Yeah, I remember. You remember too. Remember the PlayStation official magazines where they'd have the demos on the cover? That was like the highlight of the month every month. Get to play Getaway demo or something.
Oh, the golden age of OPM demos was the demo disc where it put out True Crime, Streets of Los Angeles demo, some other demo I can't even mind, and a demo for basically Zone of the Enders too. I was just like golden era OPM.
Wasn't there a Zone of the Enders demo in the Metal Gear Solid disc as well? I think
that was for 1, yeah.
Hey, I think it was something.
Yeah. So the Metal Gear Solid 2 demo was in Zone the end. There's one.
Yeah. That went on for a while. Like games came with demos. Like I was dipping into some old games recently, some Xbox games, and sure enough, there in the main menu was demos. I think I was playing Halo or something. I don't know what it was, but it had like a Fusion Frenzy demo in it. Just bonkers, like
And
that
then
these days.
and then you would have the Halo 3 multiplayer beta included with Crackdown.
Oh yeah, I bought Crackdown for that. But actually, Crackdown was freaking good.
No, it was.
Yeah,
It was genuinely one of those times where actually putting a demo in a game worked to Crackdown sort of favor. Not so much 2, 3, or 4, but like 1. Yeah.
No, we don't talk about them. But yeah, no, 1 was. I remember my message tone for ages was the orb noise. So I found all those orbs in Crackdown. I remember like Crackdown for me is associated with my first child, because when she slept, I didn't want to move her, so she would be asleep on the ground in a little kind of rocky chair, and I'd be playing Crackdown looking for orbs. So
also, I don't know why I referenced 4 in regards to Crackdown. There's only been 3 games. I don't know why I basically look back and think, oh, there's been 4 Crackdown games. No, there's been 3, and we should be thankful there's only been 3. Although, to be fair, 2 gets a lot more stick than it deserves. 3 definitely deserves stick it deserves.
Yeah,
2
I think
it
just feels like it feels like there was 4.
Yeah, it just feels like there was 4. It just feels like, I think it's probably because Crackdown 3 was sort of seen as 2 games, basically one being single player and the other being the sort of multiplayer bombastic effort. But
yeah, with the crazy cool tech.
Yeah,
I remember. Anyway, it went away anyway. God love it. Yeah. So did I think that answered that. That's yeah. I've always been about video games. Like every morning when I wake up, even now I'm like 45. Like every morning.
Fuck off! You're not 45.
I am. Thank you. That's. I think that's good. Thank you. I know I don't look 45, like, but I am 45.
Jesus Christ!
Which means you're like what, 42, 43? I know you're not. No, I've always been old, Johnny. Now I'm just older than you. But in the morning when I wake up, like the first thing I think of is usually some sort of a game thing. And when I go to bed, before I go to bed every night, I usually turn off something that I've been playing. So I don't think I'm going to grow out of it at this point. I don't think so.
No, that's a good line. That's a good line, especially for a trailer.
I was in the small town in Ireland, and there wasn't really any decent game shops. Well, there was 1 or 2, but I think the games are out of my price range, which was like £2 or
shout out to Extravision.
That was before Extravision, Johnny.
Fuck.
It was there was no Extravision then. It was like Teleport Computers was the first computer place in Waterford, and they sold like digital cameras and computers. They had a whole wall full of Spectrum games. They were budget games. They were like $1.99 or something like that, but they were all out of my price range because I never had any money. So with the Spectrum, you got like a really cool manual which taught you how to code in BASIC. In them days, like when you got a computer, you got manuals with it that taught you how to use some stuff, like how to use the word processor, who cares, but also how to code in BASIC. And in that like magical little book, there was actually stuff you could type in to make like a breakout game was one. And I think there was a Pong game too. And that was pretty freaking cool to discover that I could actually screw buying games. I could like try and make some. And then I got like Football Manager in 1 year. And while it was loading, I pressed some key combination by accident, which crashed it. But the way it crashed it, it let me into the code. So I could see all the code for Football Manager. And that was all written in BASIC. So I could actually understand almost all of it. So that was like, I didn't sleep that whole night. I was just reading that code and tweaking it and stuff. So I was, I had like Pele on my Sheffield Wednesday team and stuff, and all that kind of stuff. But that like opened a whole world of coding for me. I never really stopped making games then. Making games is better than playing games. Like I'll take making a game over Burnout 2 even, if I was put to it. Like it sounds cheesy, but making the games is the greatest game of all. I firmly believe in that. But so I kept coding, like, and then it got easier as you got older. Like I got a Spectrum, not a Spectrum, sorry, an Atari ST after Spectrum, and that came with like more kind of robust tools for coding. So I was able to like easier make better games. I got like a piece of software called STOS. I can't remember what it stands for. It was just a kind of semi-basic way of writing games on Atari ST. So you were able to make like actual decent platformers and stuff out of it. So I made those, and I got a game published on the Atari ST then when I was like very young. I made like a game called Oops. I think it was called Oops. It was called Oops. It had like a mascot and everything, and I think it got published because like I like to like I like making a whole product. Like, so even then I had like start menus and pause menus and levels and shit, and then end in the start. So that probably stood it out from most people's just like ideas. So that got published, and then eventually I went off to college to learn about computers. There was no you couldn't go to college to learn to be a game developer because there was no such thing. It wasn't a real job. I wouldn't have known. So I went to college for that for a little while, and then I got lost for like 10 years. I didn't have a console for like 10 years, or anything at all. Like I just went. I traveled around the world, and I learned to play guitar, and I played in bands and stuff, and I was a wine taster for a little while in Canada. I met my wife, and eventually games just kind of came back, and they've been back ever since. And I went back to college to learn how to do stuff properly, and I just kind of got better at making games, and I'm still doing it. It's like an abridged version of like a stumbling through life.
That's probably the best way to describe it. And so I should actually also admit, for the sake of full disclosure, Shane, back in the day when I was at Fiji 24/7, helped develop the website's iOS app. So I remember like you sending me like early versions of the app, basically, because you were just basically experimenting as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was working in America Online, AOL. I had a job training people how to fix computers, and the iPhone game, and they had like an SDK that you could download for free, and you could make stuff. So I was doing that in my spare time, and it turned out that like doing that was kind of scratched my programming itch. So I loved Eurogamer, the forum, like, because when you're working in a call center like I was working, you kind of find a place to exist during the day so you don't go crazy. And my place to exist during the day so I didn't go crazy was the Eurogamer forum. That saved me from insanity at the time. And they wanted an app, and I could make an app. So I made like a demo app, and I sent it to Rupert and the Eurogamer people, and they could not have been nicer. There's nothing they could have done nicer or more better or more friendlier along the whole way. I ended up making their app, met you, then through that I made the gamesindustry.biz app and videogamer.com app, different company but same kind of thing. Made Pat a VG247 app. Jesus, and there was a Nintendo Life one for a while. For a while there, I had like the video game website app cornered just by accident, just by pure accident. And eventually I left the AOL, and I started doing the app stuff full time, the iOS gaming stuff full time. All from that, like if Rupert hadn't have been so nice and let me do the Eurogamer app, and I wouldn't be where I am today at all. Like during the course of your life, like you meet about like 5 or 6 people, like and they kind of, you bounce off them and you go a different direction. And if they hadn't have been there, And sometimes they don't even know they were that person. Like if they hadn't been there, your life would have been totally different. Him being so nice was definitely one of those people in my life, for sure.
And then after all the iOS stuff, you're now doing Rocketship Park and Love.
I am, yeah. iOS stuff went well for like a long time. But then, how do I put this politely? The arse fell out of the mobile industry, basically. So and I got bored actually of making games just on iOS, because like I was a dumbass. Like for years I made games that just ran on iOS. I didn't use Unity or any other engine. Like I used my own engine on iOS, which was stupid. I thought it was clever, but it was stupid because it meant I could only release my games on iOS. So since then I learned and copped on, and I now make my games in Unity mostly. And then now, so those games run all over the place. So since then, I've had a few games out on Windows and Android and Switch, and some other console games are coming too. So I'm all over the place now. I'm spread. I'm almost fully moved away from mobile and onto big boy platforms. But it's been fun. It's crazy. It's crazy cool when you finally make a console game after 20, 30 years of buying console games. It'll never go away. Like that was pretty cool. I just wish it was a boxed one. I'd love to make a boxed one someday before boxes go away,
Just this sort of physical sort of element of, oh look, this thing I made, it's in a box now.
It's in a freaking box. Yeah, I can put it on a shelf. It's in a box. Like the little, it's stupid things like the little Nintendo Switch logo animation before like the Love trailer was like nobody else knows it. And I'm like, every time I see it, I'm like, oh, that's my game, and that's like a Nintendo logo before it.
That's sort of like a split second of serotonin right there. Just goes like, that's my game after the Nintendo Switch logo. That Switch.
Yeah, it's like I've tricked all these people into letting me do this. That's what it feels like, It doesn't feel real. Nobody can really understand it.
And now the only thing left is just put out a boxed release, but you won't be able to do it in Extravision or Chartbusters. Remember Chartbusters? No,
I won't have like a wall of them. Chartbusters and Extravision. I won't have a wall of them in Extravision next to the new releases. I guess I could fake it. I guess I could mock up a box, and who's going to know it's not real? Well, anybody who listens to this maybe.
Live out your dreams, Shane. Live out your dreams.
I'll make a wall of them, Johnny. Whole freaking room of them. And here's love on CD32. Here's love on the 3DO. Yep.
PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, just go nuts.
Yeah, cross-platform all over. Yeah.
Let's touch upon your favorite game, which is Burnout 2, Point of Impact, which I am somewhat a little bit surprised by, but we'll get to that in a minute. First, let's touch upon before Burnout 2, which was Burnout 1.
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
I remember well. I'm an Edge subscriber for decades now, I guess. And I remember the cover of Edge magazine. And the cover of Edge magazine had a mock-up of a new driving game called Burnout, and it was from Criterion. Like it was I guess they were showing off the renderware engine. I think they'd just done Airblade at the time. I think that was the name of the one that came up before, and I don't know why, but Jesus, it looked amazing. And Edge gave it a good preview, and then I raced to the video store to buy it when it came out, and I played it to death on my PlayStation 2. It was a great game. It wasn't. It's not. It was a start of something. It was really smooth. It looked really good at the time. It had some magic there, but you could see it wasn't polished yet. You could drive on the wrong side of the road to build up your boost, which was a new thing. It wasn't dialed in enough yet. Like, it took an awful lot of work to build up a boost, but the bits were there, and it was a good game. I remember the soundtrack, which wasn't licensed branding. Like, it was just a catchy soundtrack. And I played it again recently on Xbox and also GameCube, actually. I think it was GameCube I played it on recently. Yeah, I think they ported that to GameCube. And it was still good. Still good. You could see it. Like, recently when I knew I was coming on this, I decided to play all the Burnout games. So I sounded like I knew what I was talking about. So I played them all from start to finish, and Burnout. Burnout is still good, the first one, for sure. Bloody hard, but still good.
You say it is, like you say, it's bloody hard. Like that's sort of what I remember about Burnout 1 anyway, and Burnout 2. Like, they were very difficult games anyway. Like, I don't know if you had, I can't remember if you had too much of a choice in regards to difficulty anyway.
No, you didn't. You had no choice as regards difficulty. I don't think any of the Burnout games have like a difficulty slider or anything like that. No, he didn't. But Burnout 1 was definitely too hard. Burnout 2 wasn't as hard. But it did well. I think they just, I don't know exactly now, but there's great stories you can find on the web about how Burnout was born. Alex Ward, I think his name, talking about it, about the red car, which is the red car on the road. And then somebody told him they should let the car drive on the other side of the road and build up boost, and it was a revelation, and so a series was born. But there's lots of cool stories about Burnout.
So on Burnout 2 then,
yep.
Why specifically Burnout 2? Because, like, you say that Burnout 1 was just basically the start of something, but it was also somewhat, like, it wasn't as polished as Burnout 1 wasn't as polished as it maybe could or should have been. But Burnout 2, it like feels like sort of an iteration of what came before with Burnout 1, but only just an iteration. Whereas obviously future games afterwards, and we'll touch upon those future games in good detail in a bit, but like Burnout 2, like, it feels like just basically a simple iteration on 1. Like, so why specifically 2 as your favorite game?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I can probably explain it easier if I say I'm an arcade racer fan. I love arcade racers. This is my favorite genre of game. And by arcade racer, I mean a racing game in an arcade. And Burnout 2, in my opinion, was the greatest arcade racer ever made. Burnout 3, we'll get back to Burnout 3, but that wouldn't work in an arcade. That's kind of why I favor Burnout 2. It's like Burnout 2, it looked quite a bit better. And when you put them side by side, it looks quite a bit better than Burnout 1. Like, it's a big evolution, Burnout 1, in all the ways. In graphically, it's way ahead. If you play them side by side. Sonically, it's also way ahead if you put them side by side. And gameplay wise, game design wise, it feels ahead. It's not even close. And also it controls, everything is better. And everything is better. It's just there's nothing wrong with that game. It's hard to talk about it. Like, so and it's a personal thing as well, because at the time I was working in AOL, and they had like in the canteen, they had like a stand-up PlayStation cabinet, which was like an arcade machine, but there was a PS2 inside, and they had Burnout 2 in there. So I went there, like, for sanity. If ever I was going to kill anybody, I'd go there and play some Burnout 2. And I got to a point where, like, I never ninja'd a game before or since, but I was a Burnout 2 ninja. Like, there was nobody in the like 800 call center staff who could come close to me. I could win all the races, chaining from start to finish, Burnouts. Like, I was the total ninja of Burnout. I was at one with that game. I still am. But the reason why I like it best, and I know it's probably hard to make sense of from like review point of view, or from like a maybe logical point of view, is that it's an arcade racer. That game could be in a freaking arcade, and it's in your house. You're looking at it. You're playing it on your big screen, and it's in your freaking house. Burnout 3, when it came, was a bloody good game, but it was more of a console arcade racer. It had some other sensibilities to it, and I loved it too. Since played it many times since, finished it many times since, but it just wasn't the arcade racer the Burnout 2 was. So I'm sure a lot of the people you talked on this podcast, their favorite games aren't necessarily the best game ever played. There's a difference, you know. Burnout 2 is not the best game I've ever played in any of the categories, but it's certainly my favorite game.
And I think we should, like, so it's worth noting that we're recording this on what is actually the 7th anniversary of the first episode of My Favorite Game coming out. And the thing is, I always make it a point of getting people to talk about their favorite game. Not necessarily the game that they think is the best of all time. There is a distinct difference between what you think is the best game of all time, and sometimes that can be their favorite game, and that's fair enough. But there's a difference between what is the best game of all time and the point of all this podcast for the past 7 years or so. What is your favorite game? There is a somewhat difference between the two of you, and between the two of them. I think you sort of nailed it on the head, because like you say, Burnout 2 may not be the best game ever made, but it is, like you say, your favorite game for those seminal reasons that you mentioned, like playing Burnout 2 in an AOL call center and just basically owning the hell out of everyone there.
Yeah. And I never owned the hell out of anyone in anything else before or since. It's not just that. Like, it owns an emotional part of my psyche and my body. When I boot it up to play it again, like I did last week here, I'm smiling just when I hear the freaking music. It was my ringtone on my phone for ages. I can't explain it. The soundtrack on 3 is probably better, arguably. Well, not even arguably, it is better. You know, there's something about that game, Johnny.
The reason I also say this is because I've not played a whole lot of 1 and 2. 3 and was sort of my gateway into the series, which, again, we'll talk of 3 and all that in a minute, but like I have played a tiny wee bit of Burnout 2, not a whole lot, but a tiny wee bit. But I know obviously enough of it to sort of talk of it a bit at length anyway. And so let's touch upon then a bit more detail then of Burnout 2, because like if I say it feels like a sort of iteration a little bit on Burnout 1, but like there was, like, to be fair, there was a lot of new stuff added into Burnout 2 anyway, like brand new modes, brand new cars and all that there. Like, but the main one I sort of want to talk about was the inclusion of crash mode. The sort of mode that has actually been seen sort of as the de facto sort of number 2 mode in the game now, or in the series now, alongside the racing aspect of it. Anyway, like that was sort of Burnout 2 sort of big party trick anyway.
Yeah, it was. I played a hell of a lot of that with friends and passed the controller around. In 1 there was no crash mode, but you could see where the idea was percolating, because in 1, when you crashed, it told you how much every crash you made in the race. It told you how much it cost to fix. When you crashed in normal single player campaigns, in single player races, you can see the embryo of an idea there, which ended up being flat out crash mode in Burnout 2 and beyond. Yeah, crash mode was great, but it wasn't my I played a hell of a lot of crash mode, but mostly it was just it was a single player racing for me that drew me into it. Burnout 2 anyway. And crash mode got better, and kind of crash mode got better, I guess, in 3, and then in 4, crash mode kind of lost a bit of the magic when they added too much to it. It became a bit too hokey. If I remember correctly, it was in 4 Revenge. Yeah.
Hmm. And also as well, Burnout 2, like Burnout, and with Crash Mode, like, it feels a lot more puzzly. There's a puzzle element to it as well.
Yeah, it's a puzzle game. Crash Mode's a puzzle game. It's a flat out puzzle game. It gives you to fly by and gives you clues as to the car you need to hit and the way you should hit it. Yeah, it's a flat out puzzle game. Like that's what Crash Mode is, and always has been. That's why you don't need arcade racing skills to play it. That's why you can play it with your little sister or your ma, your dad, like I would have done.
I think what's really interesting about Burnout 2 as well is that it is, like you say, an arcade racer, but like when you think of arcade racers, you think of, oh, you're racing around these tracks and all that there. Burnout 2 basically has this mode that's also included now, that's basically sprint, basically point to point, and where you're just basically racing from one place to another from A to B. And that's sort of, I'm not saying this is a criticism, but I'm just sort of pointing out, sort of, maybe I'm being pedantic here in terms of terminology, but like it's definitely, what's the word? Like as a result of that, it feels less. You may disagree with me here, but it feels less arcadey as a result.
Burnout 2, because it has like point to point races.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does. It has there's laps in Burnout 2. There's laps in all.
Oh yeah. That's still there.
It goes around. Yeah. The laps are there. No, I wouldn't say that's a fair criticism, Johnny. You're not going to be able to.
I did say I was being pedantic here.
Yeah. Do you know what? I remember I was probably really annoying at the time because I was like someone who wanted to be a game designer and who wouldn't stop playing this game. Like if you came around to my house drunk after disco nightclub, I guess disco is aging me. If you came around after disco, like I'd force you to play Burnout probably. And I remember one night being incredibly drunk and forcing people to look at the tarmac texture in Burnout 2 because it was wonderful, Johnny.
They're probably telling you shut the fuck up about the tarmac and play the fucking game.
They were like, it's not this. It's not. You don't live with that guy. The Burnout 2 guy. that was me, and I'm like, look, it blooms. The sun is melting off the tarmac. Can't you see the beauty? Where are you going? Where are you going?
Come back. I want to tell you about the sort of TikToks about what's in the environment.
Come on.
The lighting.
So yeah, that was me. Sorry about that. So it's a wonder I managed to find a partner at all. It's actually my partner was there when I was playing Burnout one when I was replaying it on a PlayStation 2, and she knew I was obsessed by it. And then one day she turned off the PlayStation 2 while it was saving, and I lost my Burnout save. You said like how hard Burnout 1 was. So and I didn't nothing went wrong, like, but I was pretty freaking devastated. And I remember I just like sat there on a stool in front of the telly, started it again, and like I didn't move until I got back to where I was. And I remember she just brought me over like a cup of tea 2 hours later and just like stood beside me. Let's get back to where I was. She knew the error of her ways. Like I didn't take that long, but I got back to where I was. But that was by far my worst save situation. I knew I loved her then, Johnny, because it was okay that she deleted my Burnout save.
She subsequently found out don't fuck with someone's save, basically.
Turn it off, for God's sake. Don't turn it off when the little thing is spinning around.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I know it happened like ages ago, but I still have to feel it. I feel like I still have to give condolences for that.
I was nearly finished. I was almost finished the fucking thing.
That makes it worse. If it was like close to the beginning or somewhere around that, like
I had the extra cars unlocked, and there was a bush you could unlock too. I had that unlocked to go get it all again. And that game wasn't just hard. That game was plain unfair at times. Like I had a fear of like white transit vans for years because fuckers would jump out of corners at you. Like they'd wait at the last corner. So yeah.
Oh
Sorry,
my
Johnny.
God.
You don't deserve to be my therapy. See, you seem nice.
I will be invoicing you when we're done.
Yeah, I'll be able to walk by a white transit van and not be upset after this podcast.
Anyway, Burnout 2 itself. I think that the interesting point you mentioned is that Burnout 2 can absolutely not coexist, but like basically put, if you walked into an arcade in the early 90s, early 2000s even, you could easily see that game actually being part of an arcade. It's not just an arcade racer in name. It is a literal arcade racer where you would go and sit down and play the game in a sort of cabinet sort of type thing that you would like. I'll give one example, like the arcade version of Need for Speed Carbon. There might be other examples, better examples, but Need for Speed Carbon sort of stands out because there is a Need for Speed Carbon arcade cabinet. And Mario Kart as well, stuff like that there, etc. And oh god, all the crappy Fast and Furious ones. But basically,
there's a grid one too, you know. Codemasters actually put out a grid one.
Oh, they did, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, it's pretty rare, but I've seen it around.
And then obviously all the Sega ones with Sega Rally, Daytona, and do you remember Sega? Do you remember Sega putting out a cabinet for Sega Touring Car Championship?
Yeah, I do. Those Sega games were magic. My second favorite game, if there was a follow-up podcast, would be Daytona 2. That's my second favorite game. So I'm a big Sega fan too. So that Outrun cabinet could sit happily beside between your Daytona 2 cabinet and your Sega Rally cabinet, and that's why I love it.
The reason I say that is because obviously, like you say, Burnout 2 you can't easily coexist in a cabinet. Why do you think it feels so suited for an arcade?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's the tone, like the tone of it, how fast it is. Like, it's hard to put a finger on it. Like the controls, like the whole tone and feeling of the game is kind of immediate and just let's get down to do some racing. And there is a story at the start, but it's not as overblown as the I guess maybe we'll mention DJ Striker and shit later on. It just, I don't know, it just feels like it belongs in an arcade and its immediacy, and the races are not as long as the races in Burnout 3 are much longer than the races in Burnout 2, noticeably so, and that kind of takes away from the immediacy of it. I think, I don't know, there's a culmination of things, Johnny, to just make it feel that way.
Did you ever play? So you've obviously played the PS2 version. You played the GameCube version. Did you ever play the original Xbox version?
Yeah, I played them all. I own them all. I own 2 Xbox Ones, one PlayStation 1 and a GameCube one. I own it on. I own it wherever it is. I own 2. I own all the Burnouts, Johnny. So like most of them more than once, even the PSP one. Yeah, I have a Burnout problem.
No, I mean specifically Burnout 2 on Xbox anyway, because like that's basically that basically came out like a year after the PS2 version. Well, the GameCube version did as well, but like the Xbox version anyway, like it was basically like a director's cut anyway, but it also there was not a whole lot of differences added to it. Like it was basically new car skins and just new junctions for Crash, but like it was It also had like a leaderboard for Xbox Live Arcade, or not Xbox Live Arcade, just basically Xbox Live in general. Like, did you sort of take advantage of that?
No, because I didn't have the broadbands. Because of the country and the place I was living in, I didn't have usable broadband. You should know. You're from the same country I am. It wasn't. Well, maybe you'd better broadband up there. I didn't like. At no point during the Xbox's life was Xbox Live an option for me. I would have liked it, but
like at least with us, like the one good thing about the Brits is that they actually gave us good broadband. Can't really say that about Aircom.
Was it the BT?
It was BT. It was
up there
BT.
even? It was. Yeah, it was. Yeah. Well, also that my parents only recently got decent broadband. Like they're in Sleeve Root. They only recently stopped using like a 3G dongle.
Jesus. That's as close to the Stone Age as you can get outside of dial-up.
Yeah, I think the original Xbox Live did work on dial-up. Well, work like in inverted commas, but it did allow dial-up. I think I remember getting the demo disc for it, but I couldn't use it. I think MotoGP was on it. There was something else on it. Getting all those games to work on dial-up Xbox Live original was a miracle of engineering. I don't know how they ever managed to do it. There's a few good books about it. That Dean Takahashi or whatever his name is book about the birth of the Xbox is a great book. There's a couple of great books around that time.
So let's touch on then everything that came after 2, and this is where I can sort of broadly speak a bit more about Burnout, because like I said, I've only played a tiny wee bit of 2, and I've not played 1 at all. But from 3 onwards, I can sort of talk with a lot more authority, because like 3 is for me one of the best arcade racing games of all time. One of the best racing games, full stop. Like regardless of the arcade definition or not, like it is for me one of the best racing games of all time. And I think that's a lot down to how much the gameplay is improved, the soundtrack that you alluded to earlier, Franz Ferdinand, Bon Blondies, Ash, etc. What else? Takedowns introduced in Burnout 3 and like being so fucking satisfying. I would try and gold medal every road rage event that was available, because like there's something so cathartic about getting so many takedowns and sort of extending the clock by 5 or 10 seconds or so, and just going. The best way I can sort of describe that is just sort of anytime you're sort of driving, you're doing takedowns, you go da 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 da. That sort of catharsis in a bit. And then Burnout Revenge. I'm going to say something very controversial. I do not like Burnout Revenge. I do not think it was a good game. Oh, no. That's a bit harsh. I don't say I don't. That's harsh. That's harsh. But I don't like Burnout Revenge.
But I agree. I don't either. It's the weakest.
Yes. That's probably a good way to say it. I wouldn't say
I agree with that.
That saying it's a bad game is very harsh, admittedly. Like that's sort of me sort of rushing to judgment. But I do think it is the worst of the lot anyway. And Paradise, I have so many fond memories of Burnout Paradise, especially online, especially with the demo. Like it wasn't even a bit; it was a full-on, straight-up demo that you could play before the game came out, and I would play it with friends on the PlayStation forum back in the late 2007, early 2008, just sort of on the beach trying to get the jumps sort of done and the barrel rolls and all that there. It was just like, and when the full game came out, I think January 2008, like it's just what you just heard there, listener, was just a sort of
remembering.
Let's sort of nostalgic, happy sigh of me sort of pondering back on Burnout Paradise and listening to LCD Sound System and Avril Lavigne and Soundgarden just basically being the soundtrack to that entire game, and Junkie XL as well. But anyway, digressing massively from the point. Talk to me about how you sort of saw the series after 2 anyway.
Well, I think Burnout 3, your views on Burnout 3 are fair. Burnout 3 is a wonderful, amazing game. It's one of the best arcade races of all time. One of the top 2-3 arcade races of all time. Just didn't quite beat 2 for me, but for most people it would have. They upped their game in a big way. Graphics are stunning. They're different style graphics. Like they definitely changed the tone of it. Probably I mean, Burnout 2, when you're going fast, it's really quite crisp. And Burnout 3, when you're going fast, there's a lot of post processing going on. There's a lot of blurring around the edges and stuff. It feels like you're going faster. It feels like, you know, that 2-inch circle at the middle of the screen that you're always looking at when you're playing Burnout, that got smaller. But Burnout 3, just a touch. They upped their sound game. Oh my God, that game sounded good if you had the proper sound system. When you were boosting, it felt like a freaking airplane was going, particularly on the Xbox version, the Xbox 360 version. Ooh, that was good. That was a great game. I finished that game many times too. Soundtrack was nice. I hated the DJ at the start. I hated it, but maybe it was because, I mean, I kind of knew what I was doing at that point, and I kind of resented that they made you do the tutorial. You couldn't skip it, which is daft. Crash was better too in that. But you're right when you talked about Burnout 4, Revenge. It was Revenge. It did lose. They did drop the ball a little bit. But I think they dropped the ball because they just had too many balls. Like they perfected. What else was there to add, you know? I mean, so they ended up adding, what did they call it? Cross-checking. Not takedowns, you know, when you can hit cars.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're on about. Like, to be fair, it's been a lot longer for me to play Burnout Revenge than it has been for Burnout 3 or Burnout Paradise, because Paradise I've played a lot more recently, especially with the remaster, and 3 I play every now and then, at least once a year or something. Whereas Revenge I've not played in fuck knows how long it's been at this point. I want to say at least 8-9 years.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't bother.
No.
It's not in the same thing. And I mentioned that checking because I think that's the single thing that broke it the most. All the time it was a risk reward, driving the wrong way or hitting cars, and now all of a sudden you could hit cars in certain scenarios, or quite a lot of scenarios, and it just broke it. It just took a little something away, which made the cake not as nice.
Yeah. There was no risk but all the reward, and that made the reward feel a lot less meaningful
visceral.
As a result.
Meaning, it was a lot less risky and visceral driving the other side of the road or pressing the boost button. Like, you got away with stuff you would never have got away with before. But you're right. Then they made another one of their master strokes, Paradise. Oh my God, everything you said is true. Paradise was one hell of a game, and still is one hell of a game. Those remasters are good.
Oh yeah, they absolutely are.
I played the PC one again recently because I got a newer PC, so I wanted to see what it would look and run like on my new PC, and I ended up like putting 10 hours into it. But when it first came out on 360, was it 360? I guess it was 360.
Yeah,
Paradise,
yeah, 360 PS3, yeah.
So I put over 100 hours into that thing, like the online with friends, Eurogamer friends, just farting around, you know, at night, getting the challenges and, like you say, doing the stunts and whatnot. I'd say if you were to kidnap me, throw me in the back of a car, and roll me out somewhere in Paradise City, I'd be able to find my way to any of those destinations you wanted me to go to, because I'm so familiar with that city.
Yeah,
that's a sign of a great game.
Great
world building.
I think the best way to sort of describe Paradise is it feels. Actually, I think this also sort of feels like why Revenge is not as good as 3 or Paradise, because at least with 2 through to 3, there is such a significant jump in how much is improved in that game. Like you said, the presentation is a massive jump from 2 to 3. There's the soundtrack that's incredible. There's gameplay and mode enhancements that make it, for me, one of the best racing games that's ever been made. And Paradise, the jump from Revenge to Paradise, the most immediate jump is the open world aspect and how you just seamlessly get together with friends, no problem, and all that there. And plus, just basically maintaining that excellent gameplay of free, basically, and no sort of what was it you referred to within French? That sort the sort of
No structure.
yeah, like the structure and the sort of in terms of revenge stuff. Like, what was the thing you mentioned in regards to the cars? I can't mind.
Oh,
Mind. The side
what wasn't
check.
called takedown. What was it? Cross checking,
Crash check.
whatever it's
That's it.
called.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like there was none of that at all. Like,
Nope.
if you had a car on the opposite end, opposite lane, or in the same lane that you're in, basically, like that was it. You were not able to have your cake and eat it. Basically, like there was a lot more risk and reward that time. Um, and I guess really what I'm trying to get at is just I lost my train of thought, so I don't actually know what I was trying to get to. But I think the point is, at least with like there's been a massive jump in every game, at least from 1 to 2 to 3, but not Revenge. It's only when we get from Revenge to Paradise that there's a massive jump, but there's no big massive jump in Revenge, and I think that's sort of why it's.
Do you know what, Johnny? I wonder what the gap was between Revenge and Paradise. I wonder if behind the scenes they weren't just thinking about Paradise all the way through Revenge, or the best people weren't just working on Paradise all the way through Revenge's development. And that's why Revenge kind of got, was the weaker of all of them.
I think it was around that time Criterion first made a pitch for Need for Speed. So you may be on something here.
It felt like that. It felt like that their mind was elsewhere, and as it turned out, it was. It was Paradise. Somebody said, "Hey, you can have you can make a game called Burnout Paradise, and also be able to afford the freaking Guns N' Roses song on your soundtrack. So why wouldn't you? Of course, you'd be thinking about something else." Yeah, and then what happened? Where Criterion went after that is a different story altogether. With kind of really interesting more recent developments too. Like those guys are mostly all back together again. I think it's Three Fields Entertainment, I think they're called. I hope I don't get that wrong.
Yeah.
They made the Dangerous Golf game and Dangerous Driving, and they're making Dangerous Driving 2 now. I'm waiting on that. And that's a really interesting game to play if you play it, because you can sense, you can smell, you can see, you can feel the burnout in there for sure.
No, I get the sense that when Alex Ward and Fiona Sperry left Criterion to sort of help find Three Fields Entertainment, they sort of wanted to build a sort of Burnout spiritual successor. And Dangerous Driving, I think, is sort of the first step in that regard. I don't know if I would say I was sort of taken with the first Dangerous Driving game, but I absolutely get.
Oh yeah,
where they were.
No, it's not great. The golf game was okay. Then they brought out like Danger Zone or something. I cannot remember the name of it, but it was a car game. And then more recently they've got Dangerous Driving, and it's not a great game. But you can see them evolving, just like Burnout 1 probably wasn't a great. You can see them evolving into something greater and better. I have high hopes for Dangerous Driving 2. They're a tiny team, so it's not realistic for me or you to expect Revenge or Paradise out of that tiny team. But it is realistic for me and you to maybe expect a 2 or a 3 out of them, which you might get if we give them the time. Somebody's given them the time. It looks like they're funded. I think they've made it through the pandemic. It's still due to be released too. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes out of here.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like, I think, like you say, there is sort of that evolution on, there's this sort of evolution, like you say, Burnout 1, but you could sort of see that there was something there, whereas now with Dangerous Driving, you could maybe see of, maybe an improvement there in the same way 1 and 2 was, and the jump from 1 and 2, and even 2 to 3 even.
Yeah, they're building something. You can see it, and you can see they're building the engine. Well, they're getting used to the engine. They're using Unreal, but you can see they're getting used to it. It's a sensible way right now to build a game with a small studio. To build the pieces.
So, sort of like a jigsaw puzzle in a way.
Yeah, build the pieces, and hopefully each piece does just well enough for you to be able to afford to build the next piece, and then eventually you might have something substantial.
I actually just remembered as well in terms of Burnout. Anyway, there was Burnout Legends as well, and I remember just playing that. Like, it's just basically a compilation of Burnout's greatest hits. Like, came out around the same time as Burnout Revenge, but like Burnout Legends was such a good game to play, especially on the PSP. And I think a PS2 version did come out later on, but like playing it on the PSP was just chef's kiss. You can't see this because like this isn't a video podcast, but like chef's kiss.
Heard that. Yeah, it was. It was great. I remember watching the E3 videos at the time, probably on like GameSpot or IGN or something, of Alex Ward when he was talking about Legends, and he had it on his PSP there. And at the time, I was a big PSP fanboy. I bought like the Japanese PSP when it came out in Ireland. Like it was shipped from Japan to Ireland. I remember collecting it in AOL out at the reception, and my hands were like shaking when I was opening the box. I was so freaking excited to get a PSP. That thing was ahead of its time, Johnny. That thing was just a beast. I played I got Ridge Racer with it, and it was just like it was like an impossible thing in your hands. And Burnout was a banger on that too, but it wasn't. It's not up with the great Burnouts. It ran at 30 frames a second, which really stripped it of a lot of stuff, a lot of good feels. But it was a commendable version of Burnout. I fondly remember that.
No, absolutely. No, I agree with you. That's not up there in the higher echelon, but I would still say I would honestly put it above Revenge in terms of the Burnout games list. I don't know. Like for me, anyway, like it's just so, like you say, it does strip away a bit of the essence of what makes Burnout so good. But in doing so, you still have a really good racer considering the technical limitations of what you can do on the PSP anyway. So like I can't really complain too much on what Burnout actually says.
I played a hell of a lot of that game when it came out. I must get hold of it again actually for my PSPs.
I actually just double checked, and Burnout Legends did not come out in PS2 because basically that was Burnout Paradise, but like not Burnout Paradise, Burnout Revenge. But there was a DS version, and that did not.
Oh,
that was not good. Apparently,
I have never played that, and I'm not going to. I played the Ridge Racer on the DS, and that was not great either, Johnny.
Like, I think the good thing about the PSP is that there was some really good, competent racing games on that. DS, not so much.
Not so much. PSP got freaking Outrun as well, even like a really good version of Outrun too. PSP got it got a MotorStorm too in the end. I think it got lots of good games.
Yeah, it did. I don't know.
Arctic Rift, I think.
Yeah, like I think what I was thinking of was MotorStorm RC on the Vita.
Oh yeah, that was good.
But there was a PSP MotorStorm game. I'm just sort of checking.
I think it was Arctic Rift.
Yeah, Arctic Edge. Yeah,
Arctic Edge. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Arctic. Yeah, there you go. Arctic Edge. Yeah. It had one. Some people call it Arctic Rift. I guess it was probably maybe they had to change the name regionally.
No, that was MotorStorm 3. That was MotorStorm Pacific Rift.
Yeah, that makes sense now. Yeah.
No, that was MotorStorm 2.
Arctic Edge and Arctic
Pacific. So Pacific Rift was the second game, but Apocalypse was the third game, and that was the one that sort of got delayed because of the Japan tsunami.
Yeah.
So
that was the one I remember playing at a EG Expo on a 3D TV, and it was the future.
Yeah, no, I remember playing it with, oh God, talk about pressure, like Paul Rosinski, Rushy of Evolution, like sitting next to me. I was doing an interview with him on Motorstorm
Yeah.
Apocalypse. I was just like, this isn't at all intimidating. Basically having one of the lead designers of the game watching you play this game so awfully. And I had Matt Southern just sort of doing interviews in the background, I think, as well. But he could sort of look over to me and just sort of go, I wonder how he's doing as well.
Yeah, I had a similar thing with Split Second. I went to their studio when they were making Split Second, and it was before the EG Expo when they demoed it. I think for the first time at the EG Expo when they had the airport track, and I played it in the studio before that, and he handed me the controller and he was like, "Okay, you're like just the second person in Europe like to play this outside of someone who works in BlackRock. Off you go." And Jesus, I was very nervous because I talked myself up beforehand, but like burnout talk and shit. Like, and now I had to play this other thing, but it went fine, and actually that game went fine too. That's also a fine game. Split Second.
I think on that note, then, like let's touch upon sort of the arcade racing sort of genre as a whole. Because like as around that time as well, you were getting games, not just necessarily games like Burnout, but you're also getting excuse me, like games like Need for Speed from Criterion. You were getting Split Second. You were getting Blur, like Project fucking Gotham Race, and the earlier Forza Horizon games. You know what I did today? I actually, so for as of recording this episode, anyway, like I've been building up my collection of first party Xbox racing games. I got brand fucking new copies of Forza Motorsport. Of Forza Motorsport 2 and 3, brand fucking new for something like £40. I was just like, unopened, Jack fucking pot, love it. But those aren't racing games. So those are sim games. So we'll touch upon that. But like, I went on Amazon today to just sort of finish up the collection and buy a copy of Forza Motorsport 4. But what I also did as well, because I have copies of Project Gotham Racing 4 on Xbox 360, because that for me feels, if it's not Burnout 3 even, Project Gotham Racing 4 is the pinnacle of the arcade racing genre for me.
That's a fine choice.
And I also have Project Gotham Racing 2 on the original Xbox, but I do not have a copy of Project Gotham Racing 1 and Project Gotham Racing 3. There may be a copy lying around somewhere, but I cannot find it for the life of me. So I just bought a little copy anyway. It was dead cheap anyway, so I just figured, take the bullet. So I think for me, like that sort of what was, how long was this sort of period on for? Like it was 3-4 years, a sort of golden period of
it was
fantastic arcade racing games. Like PGR 4 happened, Split Second happened, Need for Speed Hot Pursuit happened, Burnout Paradise happened. A
lot of stuff. Blur happened. There was even like a second tier of great arcade racers. Shocks came out on a PlayStation 2, which was a daft second tier, but it was a good arcade racer. There was the Xbox had several kind of second tier good arcade simulation racers that we don't even talk about anymore. There was a long time when if you wanted to show off your new shit, you showed it on, you smacked an arcade racer on top of it, which is why we had like our PGR as launch titles, and our Sony always had a Ridge Racer as a launch title until recently.
Yeah,
we didn't even mention Ridge Racer up till now.
Oh my god, we've not.
Yeah, bangers all the way. Like, those things were
like that 3-4 year period between 2007 and 2011 was just banger after banger after banger of racing games.
Yep.
And like there was the original Grid as well.
Yeah, no, you're right. There was Colin McRae Rally was buzzing all the way through. All that Rally Sport Rally was there, whatever it was called. What's called Rally Sport? Just Rally Sport. Rally Sport 2 was an amazing rally game with an arcade twist. There was so many, but they all ate each other in the end. It all kind of changed for real that same couple of weeks. That Split Second came out the same couple of weeks as Blur came out. And they kind of both killed each other. And that was kind of the end of the arcade racer, as far as like popularity, as far as like the number one thing you gotta have, number one thing you're talking about with kids in school, and the number one thing you gotta have in your console. Those two, through no fault of their own, Jesus, they're good games. They kind of that was when it died, I think. Now it's changed, it's coming back. I'll talk about that in a second, but I feel like we're not giving all these games a fair drift. Like Split Second. If you haven't, anybody listening to this, if you haven't played Split Second, you should go get yourself a copy of Split Second and play Split Second, because that is a fucking genius game.
I second that. I second that endorsement.
Yeah, if you get it on PC, which you can still get it on PC, you can download a patch, which you can play it at 60 frames a second. So buy the game, and then there's a little tiny patch you can apply to it, which will run it at 60 frames a second. And oh my God, that's a game. Blur, like we mentioned, another wonderful game, which is basically a Mario Kart but with real cars. And
they basically took the piss out of Mario Kart in a TV commercial. Like that really sort of, like Activision put out this TV commercial of Blur where it just sort of took the piss out of Mario Kart.
Lame. Whoa. Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Racing's not about winning, it's about making friends.
Shut it, Pinky.
Blur, race like a big boy.
Yeah, like Activision put out this TV commercial of Blur where it just sort of took the piss out of Mario Kart. I love that. Yeah. I love that. Well,
it was a Mario Kart. That was a Mario Kart with real cars and too many fireworks. But there was nothing wrong with either of those games. Just it was the wrong time. They'd run their course, just like we were about to run into. Everybody had to make a rhythm music game, and they ran their course. And shooters now kind of are starting to run their course, and it's coming around again. And I am so happy it's coming around again. Like now, last week we got the best arcade racer to be released in a long time came out on the Switch. Cruise and Blast is Jesus. It's good, Johnny. It's really good. It's up there with all those other racers. It shouldn't be. If you look at it critically, which I guess you would do, the graphics are, I mean, it looks heinous. I mean, like it runs fine, but like the colors are just like they're randomly picked from sort of some child's artwork, and there's neon everywhere, and there's the font doesn't fit the rest of the thing. Like the music is mad, but an earworm. It shouldn't work, but Jesus Christ, that game is good. And it's back to the Burnout 2 type of good. It's just an arcade racer. It pretends to be nothing else. I've seen some people commenting on it saying, "Oh, it's good, but it hasn't gone online." Fuck off! Like it also doesn't sell you flowers, or it doesn't make you pizza. Like it's not supposed to have online. It's an arcade racer, and it's fucking good at that. And I miss the days when a game could be just that. I heard something recently. Like I saw a review. I'm not going to say who it was, but it wasn't you. I saw a review of Cruise Blast, and it was a glowing review from start to finish. And then they gave it like 8.5 or something, because they couldn't give it a 9.5 because it's an arcade racer. I nearly hit the roof. What? They couldn't give it a 9.5 because you don't give arcade racers 9.5, or it doesn't do anything new. Fine, that's stupid. Like, I mean, if it does everything perfectly well, then reward it as such. It's just that's just a pet peeve of mine. You rarely see a racing game these days get a 9. Sometimes I think it's because of that reason, because doesn't do anything really new. But
I think the last racing game I see get 9s across the board basically was undeservedly so, admittedly, Forza Horizon 4.
Yeah, very much deservedly so. Very much so. That's a banger.
Yeah,
that's such a great game. I haven't finished that now, but I've played a great deal of that. That game has the best intro to any racing game ever. It may never be beaten. Like where you drive through the seasons when you start. It doesn't show you how to. It just in you go, and that's the demo too. You can download a free demo. That's it. And Jesus, that game is wonderful.
So touching away from arcade racing as a whole, well, not touching away from arcade racing as a whole. Let's talk Criterion as a developer. Because like Criterion as a developer is sort of an interesting history behind it. Anyway, because like you say, like a while back, right? They had games like Airblade and games like Trickstyle and stuff like that there, but like their bread and butter was basically racing games essentially from Burnout onwards, and like they put out this amazing series of racing games with Burnout, and like they managed to fucking put out an incredible first-person shooter between Burnout Revenge and Burnout Paradise and Black, and I feel like we do not do enough justice here if we do not like unreservedly swear literally and here on the fact that Black is a fan-fucking-tastic, brilliant fucking game. Stuart Black, my invoice will be hitting your inbox for the amount of swears that I've just basically provided in terms of praising the game. But in all seriousness, they put out this amazing first-person shooter in Black, and then Bird of Paradise came out, and that was great. The Hot Pursuit came out, and that was fantastic. And then Burnout Crash, and then Most Wanted came out, fantastic. Rivals that was co-developed with Ghost, and that was when sort of everything sort of started going the other way, at least in my eyes anyway, because like I feel if you give Criterion enough rope and enough runway to do their own project, like as a standalone game like they would with a Burnout or a Need for Speed like Hot Pursuit or Most Wanted, you have on your hands one of the best studios in the world. And for them to basically do support for Star Wars Battlefront or Battlefield, I feel like is a great disservice to what Criterion is as a studio. Now, thankfully, Criterion is now, admittedly, they are still working as a support studio on Battlefield, at least this year, but they are doing a brand new Need for Speed game for the first time. By the time it comes out, it'll be the first full Criterion title in about 10 years with Most Wanted in 2012. And so I think
it's been that long.
I know, I can't believe it myself. Like, I think getting to it, like Criterion's basically been, say it's been run through the mill would be one thing, but like it's amazing to see Criterion finally come back as its own developer.
Yeah, I think there's a natural cycle to these things, Johnny. Like, you can't stay on top forever, and you can't. As their resources opened up to them, I think they did as good as they could have done. I don't think that we could ever say that Criterion didn't fulfill their potential, because they did. And then I think the problem might have been that what do you do after that? You know, and it must be hard to continue to push, like when you've made something like Burnout Paradise or the great Need for Speed. It must be hard to know where to go next, and it must be, despite when you're living in this ivory palace funded by this, loads of people have loads of money. It's got to be hard, and I think it was inevitable that things would kind of fall apart, and stuff would go wrong. But plus, their headcount went way up, and it's hard to do anything creative at that scale. We did get some stuff though in the bad years. We got that great Star Wars. They made the VR Star Wars X-Wing thing inside. That was really good.
Like to be like, I'll give credit there. It really was a fucking brilliant showcase of what the PlayStation VR could do. Anyway,
yeah, it was. I have a friend, and he sat in that and he just cried. Like he actually wept because he was like a massive Star Wars fan, and there he was sitting in the freaking cockpit of an X-wing, and he just cried inside his headset before he did anything. But that's how good it was. Like, and it's really nice and encouraging to see them come back in two ways: to see the studio come back a bit, and also to see the original guys and girls come back on their own way, in their own way, with Three Fields. You know, it's a different kind of person. It takes a different kind of person to succeed in a big studio than it does to succeed in a small growing studio. It's a different skill set. It's a different set of makeup entirely, and it's okay to check out and to go back to what you know you're good at. These guys and girls, they've made their money. They've made their big games. Like they can afford to go and start again and see how it goes at Three Fields, and they should if it makes them happy. Yeah, you can draw some parallels to music. You know, like say I'm just picking a random band, like say Metallica, like they released their like 100th studio album or something, and people will get angry because it doesn't sound like the Black Album. I mean, fuck off! Like they're not your band.
I think the best comparison when you put it like that is just basically saying Anger.
Yeah, but that's what they wanted to write at the time. They're not your band. It's hard when you get to be so successful and so good at something. I don't think you can ever possibly win that. It's got to burn at some point, and I think it just burned at Criterion eventually, inevitably. But we've seen it burn a lot worse. They seem to be all doing okay.
And I will say as well, it's a shame that we never got to see that whole extreme sports game that they were making on. I don't know if that's the right way to describe it, but it's like we got the glimpse of it at E3. What was it, 7 years ago? And then it was just basically cancelled, I think, 2 years later. I think that's a shame we never got more of that. I would have loved to have seen Criterion just sort of do a smaller racing game coming off the back of Need for Speed, basically. I think, but like do it in a much more extreme sort of sports style way. Like it was just basically, I think it was just basically the equivalent of what Ubisoft is doing with The Crew and what's the game they're putting out in a few weeks' time as we're recording this? Ubisoft. No, it's not a racing game, but it's an extreme sports game. What's the bloody name of it? I need to actually. No, that's not it.
You can dub it in later.
Yeah, I can dub it in later. No,
Yeah.
No.
That's it, Johnny. You're right. That's the name.
That's the name of it. That is the name of it. No, it's
Yeah,
It's Riders Republic. That was it.
There you
that
go.
was it. Like it was just like if EA was basically making a Steep or a Riders Republic tied with The Crew, basically. That's the best way to sort of describe it. And I wish we'd gotten that, but I'm genuinely glad to see Criterion finally get enough autonomy to do a proper standalone brand new project again, even if it is Need for Speed. But at the same time, Criterion has earned the credit that they've basically earned enough goodwill from their own Need for Speed games 10 years ago with Top Pursuit and Most Wanted, to the point where you could say, this feels a bit disingenuous to say to any other developer who have been making to EA Black Box, basically, who've been making Need for Speed games since 2013.
Yeah.
And like they're basically EA Gothenburg now again. But like after Ghosts, no, what was it? Ghosts? What was it called?
Ghost Studios, I think it was called.
No,
studio?
yeah, that was the developer. Yes, you're right. What was the game I was thinking of? Rivals, that was it. After Need for Speed Rivals, I had no real interest in Need for Speed. Like,
me neither.
I tried one or two of the games, but I just didn't feel enough interest in it. Now, for the first time in 10 years, I'm really interested to see what happens with Need for Speed, how Criterion will do it, and how they will basically make them work again. So I'm
think
excited.
that,
I'm excited. I'm excited, basically.
No, I think EA realized the error of their ways. I mean, well, they're coming back around to make a new Need for Speed game, Criterion. What happened in the interim, when the games after the Criterion game, like you say, they slowly, without wanting to slur anybody's name, they were fine games, but it lost something. And I think the sales told that story for sure. And I don't think that the whole market for arcade races was poor at the time anyway. So there may have been no way to save Need for Speed in that time anyway. It was a lull. The lull is over.
The Criterion lull is over. The Need for Speed lull is over.
Yes, and I hope the arcade racer. I hope that Cruising Blast is selling well. It seems to be selling well. I hope Criterion's game does good. I'd love to make an arcade race someday, but it's not feasible for me right now. But I would love to do it someday. So hopefully they do become the most popular thing, so I can try and justify that.
So what else do you like about Burnout 2 that we've not really touched upon here tonight?
I don't know. There's nothing in particular I like about Burnout 2. I'm a big component of feel in games. I think that you should, when you're designing a game, you should know at the very beginning of your process how you want the player to feel when they're playing that game. That sounds very Dr. Phil, or it sounds like I'm trying to sell you a keto diet or something, but I really, truly, 100% believe in that. And everything you do during the course of designing and building your game has to come back to that one feeling. And I think Burnout 2 they just nailed everything about how that game feels to play, how it sounds, how it looks, how it moves. Everything about that was just nailed. And why it feels so good and why it hits home with me is because it felt like I thought an arcade racer should feel. And that, if I'm trying to nail home anything at all, I'm trying to nail home that philosophy of game design, that I really, really believe in that if you're building something, you should know how it should feel. You should know how when Johnny sits down to play this game, everything on the screen, everything Johnny hears, everything Johnny sees should make Johnny feel X. And if you capture that, the best games all capture that. And it's not one thing. It's the font, it's the music, it's the key that the music is in. It's 1,000 little things all culminating together to capture that feeling. And Burnout 2 does that for me. Burnout 2, I feel like it's part of my actual body. We all have those games. Ico is there too. Burnout 2 is like a third of my heart, and Ico is maybe another third of my heart, or Eco if you're over this part of the world. That's all. It's more than a favorite game. It's a part of me, I'd say.
What didn't you like about Burnout 2?
Jesus, nothing. That sounds stupid. Doesn't that sound ridiculous? But it's true. There's nothing I don't like about Burnout 2.
Nothing's a perfect game. Nothing's a perfect game. Sure, there's something.
Burnout 2 is a perfect game, Johnny. Let's go. Honest to God, there's nothing. I mean, there really isn't. Sorry. It's not too hard. It's not too easy. It's not too short. It's not too long. It's not too loud. It's not too quiet. The graphics are good. The frame rate's perfect. The sound is good. For me, there's nothing wrong with Burnout 2.
What would you change from a design perspective on it if you could?
All right. If I could, if I could remake it, I guess. If I could, what I'd change from a design perspective is it might not be a better game, but I would make it more arcadey. I'd love to, then, if you give me free reign with the Burnout 2 code, I would love to make an arcade version of Burnout 2. There you go. That's what I would change. I would love to make an arcade SKU. So I'd take out the progression. I'd have all the tracks open and put in some money, get a race, unlock some cars, unlock some more tracks, come back with the code or whatever, like the newer Mario Kart games in the arcade. That's what I would love. That'd be a dream project for me.
I was going to ask how you can make it more arcadey, but you literally meant arcade.
I did, yeah. Yeah, I'm an arcade racer guy. If I was stupid rich, Johnny, behind me would not be a fake wall with the arcade machines. But I'm not stupid rich.
You would basically be that Australian guy who has just basically the room of all the arcade cabinets, basically.
I would, yeah. I would. And my children would be like sleeping outside in a tent or something. Yeah, for sure.
So usually I would ask one, maybe two questions on this front, but I'm going to ask three. But I'll start off with the sort of obvious question then. Top three Burnout games. What would they be? Obviously, two at the top. But
yeah, two at the top. Two at the top. 3 second. Paradise. Third. Yeah. So we were almost going to come to blows about 2 and 3, but it would have been silly because we would have ended up like on the ground, bruised and battered, and just they're 2 good games. 2 is barely ahead of 3, and then Paradise is my third Burnout favorite.
Top 3 Criterion titles. Burnout 2 at top, second and third.
There's no Criterion titles that bypass any of my 3 I've just mentioned, I'm afraid.
Oh, so basically same top 3.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, Black is good, but Black's not going to pass out any of those 3 Burnouts I mentioned, or Airblade or Need for Speeds. No.
I would have thought Opposite and Most Wanted would give Paradise a little trouble anyway, at least.
They would, except I don't dig the bro culture and the neons and stuff usually. So kind of drove me away from the Need for Speed games. It threw me away from hanging around with them too long, the Need for Speed games. I've never seen a Fast and Furious movie. So there you go.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I don't know why. It just never looked like it was something up my alley, which is stupid, really, because the same guy who'd spend all his money on arcade racers, I probably should watch some Fast and Furious movies.
As long as you don't go in thinking they are Oscar-worthy movies, or you're not worried about how long the jump is between the ramp and the shark, you're fine. If you go in with that mindset, you're fine.
Yeah.
And top 3 arcade racing games. I feel like that will give you a bit more of a head scratcher than anything. So obviously, Burnout 2 at the top.
Burnout 2 at the top. Burnout 2 at the top. Daytona 2 second, easily. Daytona 2 is a piece of Sega majesty, and the third one is Outrun 2. Actually, all the 2s. I'm all the 2s. Burnout 2 1, Daytona 2 second, and then third. You got to put your Outrun 2 in there because that's probably one of the best sequels of all time, considering like where they went from with Outrun 1 to Outrun 2. And Outrun 2 is still wonderful. If you can get your hands on it, it's still worth getting a hold of. You can get it on PlayStation 3, PlayStation 2, and Xbox. It's on PlayStation. Yeah, I don't think it's still on Xbox 360, but it's available in lots of different places. The PSP version is the worst version of Outrun 2. So if you can, get it on a big bike. So
I think I have an Xbox copy of Outrun 2 on my shelves. I don't know if that's backwards compatible on the Xbox 360. Is it?
You should check, because some versions of the Xbox version, the original Xbox version of Outrun 2, go for stupid money. Hundreds of dollars.
I think I got my copy for about £5 and CEX.
Well, you should check, because there's 3 different versions, and if you have one of the SP versions, then it's a good time.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be there. So I know it's from 4 years ago. So yeah, I think I can only play Outrun 2 on an Xbox 360. rather than an Xbox One. So if I could play it on Xbox One, then I could basically play it on an Xbox Series X. But I can't.
You can't. No. There's in my living room up there where I live with my poor family, underneath the main telly, the main telly where we all watch our shows and whatnot, there sits an Xbox One, original Xbox One, and it's only there to play Outrun 2 and Halo 2. There's no other reason why that's there. Me and the girls play a good bit of Halo 2 multiplayer, and I regularly play some Outrun 2 on it.
Wait, so you can play Outrun 2 on Xbox One?
Yep, original Xbox One, not the new.
That basically means I can play Outrun 2 on Xbox Series X.
I don't know if it's backward compatible with it. I don't know if it's one of those supported ones.
Like, if you're playing Outrun 2 on an Xbox One,
yeah, I am.
Then that's the original Xbox version you're playing, right?
I'm playing it on an original Xbox, though. I'm playing it on a big old green Xbox.
Oh, right. So I thought you meant Xbox One, not the original Xbox One.
There's an OG Xbox up there under the telly, and that's
okay.
Halo 2 and Outrun 2.
Gotcha now. Everything makes crystal clear sense now. God damn it, Microsoft, your naming conventions are fucking shit. Your services and games are good, but your naming conventions are shit.
They are. The services are pretty freaking amazing. That is some offering, and that's some amazing value for money. Really is like blow the doors off. If you have a PC as well, like you have it too. So I can't say enough good things about Game Pass.
Yes, honorable mentions. Go for it.
Well, we've talked about a lot of it. Okay, so the arcade racer fronts, I'm just going to name them. We've already touched on most of them. You got your Sega Rallies. We've briefly talked about. Sega Rally 2 is just a wonderful, amazing, fantastic, still to be beaten arcade rally game. You got your Daytonas, your Daytona 1, which is your pretty good Daytona, and Daytona 2, which is just amazing. We talked about Split Second, which is like a more kind of modern day. You can still play it today. Wonderful arcade racer. All those we touched on Need for Speed. I'm trying to see if we forgot any actual franchises and stuff. We didn't mention Colin McRae at all, really. Colin McRae in the middle years of, say, Colin McRae 2 and 3 and 4, they delved into arcade racing. That was definitely less of a simulation and more of an arcade rally game for a good while until they hit dirt and got more simulation based. They were great games, really great games. And other honorable mentions for games Shane likes to play is some of those dirt games are pretty good. Some of those dirt games are pretty damn good. Some of those grid games are really good. That we briefly talked about that. Cody's in general make good games, really. If I was to go on a podcast and talk about non-racing games, I would
like you are right now.
Like I am right now, I would talk for hours about Ico or Eco and Shadow of the Colossus. Those two games, Johnny, fuck. I mean, like Jesus Christ, they're pieces of religion. Like they're just majesty.
I love how you just basically said they're religious games, and I could not agree more. Especially Shadow of the Colossus and The Last Guardian for me, anyway.
Yeah. I know from following you on Twitter, you really love The Last Guardian. Well, I'll tell you that this is a true story. This is how religious Ico or Eco was and Shadow was for me. I'm a game designer. I consider myself a game designer, and like that is just their religion to me. Those games are just like so amazing in many different ways, and I love those games so much that when The Last Guardian came out, I didn't play it for years. I bought it on launch day. I didn't play it for years because I was terrified it wouldn't be good. And I booted it many times and I just couldn't bring myself to play it because I was so fucking scared that I would be let down because I invested so much in those other two games. And only like 5 years later, I got around to actually playing it and enjoyed it. And it wasn't as good as the other two games, but it's still a really good game. But that's how much I loved Shadow of the Colossus, that I couldn't bring myself to play the follow-up. Like that's how like stupidly invested in games I get. But those are two definite like non-racing games I could talk for hours about. And then I do like a bit of Halo. I do really like a bit of Halo. Not so much recent Halos, but your Halo 1s, your 2s, and your 3s were great fun. I've played hundreds of hours of Halo with my daughters, which is maybe why I like Halo. All my daughters are gamers. We fairly regularly we play games against each other, and they beat me all the time. We're kind of a gaming family, which is like a joy to me, obviously, because I'm a gamer. And then back to races again. If this is my desert island games to bring with me to the island, I'd have to bring a Mario Kart. We didn't mention Mario Kart.
No, we have not.
I'd have to bring a Mario Kart because them good games. I'd probably bring the Switch, the deluxe Mario Kart 8, because it's really good.
That's really good. Really is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So top 3 games ever. What would they be? Burnout 2 at the top. What would be 2 and 3?
2 or 3. 2 and 3 would be gosh, you're gonna make me pick between Ico and Shadow now. All right, I'm picking Shadow. So 2 would be Shadow. So Shadow of the Colossus. And then 3 would be Sonic 2.
Sonic 2?
Yeah.
Okay. Why? Give me a reason why.
Because it reminds me of a time when I was young and was discovering consoles. And that was the first game that blew my freaking brain off at how it wasn't the Mario, like it was the Sonic, at just how fluid and quick. And it was like being in a fairground and like being on a wheel, like for infinitely, like that thing moved so goddamn quick for the time. And it felt just so good. It felt so good for the time. The dynamics and the controls were all locked in. It looked spectacular, ran spectacular. And it's one of the best platform games ever made. Sonic 2, I would say. Sure, Super Mario is like a better platform game, but for me, Sonic always felt better as far as speed, and I guess I like arcade racers, so I also like my platform games fast and free and loose. I almost said something I regret there, but yeah.
And one last note that I'm sort of curious on, because you mentioned Shadow of the Colossus as this sort of second game, and you mentioned sort of the apprehension you had playing The Last Guardian, like coming off the back of Shadow of the Colossus. Was there any such apprehension when you played Blue Point's remake, if you played Blue Point's remake?
That's a good question. And I have played a remake, and there wasn't because those guys do good work.
Mm-hmm.
I really felt like it was in good hands. Those guys have always done good work. And aren't they bringing out their own game now?
They are bringing out their own game. As of recording this, last week, Sony announced that they have bought Blue Point Games, officially bringing them into the first-party fold, and basically bringing an end to what is referring to now these days in the dating scene as the sort of talking phase, basically. They put a ring on it now, Shane. They put a ring on it.
Yeah, Blue Point is now part of Sony. Yeah.
So yeah, no.
Yeah, no, I wasn't worried about Blue Point because they've always done great work. And anyway, it's not like they could ruin my memory of Shadow because I'd already played Shadow. The thing about the Guardian is that I hadn't played it yet, and I was just worried it would let me down.
Well,
which is stupid, which is ridiculous, but you know.
No, that's fair. That's totally
Yeah.
fair. That's totally fair.
Where you can find me is you can find me on Twitter at EG which is a amalgamation of my Eurogamer days. So the EG actually stands for Eurogamer because I was hanging out in the forum when I created that Twitter, and the Vroom stands for I like driving games. I like driving games. I'm always Vroom. So you can find me on Twitter, EG Vroom. I make video games with a partner of mine, Jim, under the moniker of Rocketship Park. We recently released a game for multiple platforms called Love, which you can pick up now. Currently, you can pick it up on Apple Arcade, not Apple Arcade, Jesus, no, you can pick it up on iOS, Android, PC, Mac, Switch, and soon to be other places too. Recently, it was like this week, it was Apple nominated it as the Game of the Day in the US. And we also got nominated for a Canadian Screen Award this year, which is pretty cool. If it wasn't for COVID, I would have actually gotten to walk down a freaking carpet with famous people, actors. I would have almost definitely made a show of myself because I guaranteed it would have been a free bar and I would have been coming off like 2 years of COVID. Free bar, red carpet, famous people. It's probably just as well. So Love has done well, and if you haven't checked it out yet, you should give it a look at least. It's an emotional puzzle game about love.
Thanks for listening to My Favorite Game, a podcast by PlayDiaries.com where people from the games industry come on to talk of their favorite game. If you want to listen to future episodes of My Favorite Game, as well as press play before they go live publicly on Play Diaries and other podcast platforms, please consider becoming a $2 tier podcast early access patron to our Patreon at patreon.com/playdiaries. Next week, Vicky Potts on pets. You heard me. Until next week, bye-bye.